I read 14 books in April, putting the overall total to 62 books on the year. We are going to talk through the best, the worst. We had some good nonfiction. We had some great fiction. We're going to do something a little bit different today as well. After I get through all of the books, we're going to go over some categories because I just like to categorize things. So we're going to go best of the month, worst of the month, best line, biggest surprise, biggest letdown, and a couple other categories. Just a fun way to keep track more so of what we're reading than just the little blurbs that I do. So enjoy. Thank you for coming along on this journey. Let's get into the nonfiction stuff first. We'll go nonfiction worst to best, then we'll go fiction worst to best. So let's do it. Probably my least favorite nonfiction that I read this month, Noise by Kahneman, Sibony, and Sunstein, who are authors that I have very much enjoyed, who have shaped kind of my thinking in the behavioral economics space. In Thinking Fast and Slow is one of the books that kind of taught me how to think and how to perceive and how to understand what I was thinking and what I was feeling. So I was very excited to read this, to pick this up. It's about the kind of flaws in human judgment based on the noise in the system, kind of a treatise on how do we talk about noise, what noise actually is, noise versus bias. So all things that I am incredibly interested in as someone who enjoys the process of how we think and make decisions, but it completely let me down. There weren't many, I would say, new insights from what I could gather. It was all kind of rehash of some of the older literature, some of the older studies, some of the older scholarship on noise and what it is. And it just felt like it could have been, I don't know, maybe a 2,000 word blog post about noise and about judgment and bias. And instead it was turned into, I don't know, like a 450 page book that just felt like a slog to get through. I really didn't gain any new insights. It was kind of all rehashes of stuff. And now maybe that's personally where I am. I think if you are entering into the field of behavioral economics or social science, and you're trying to understand decision-making and the decision-making process, and you don't have as much of a background as I do, you may get more out of this. But for me personally, I had already heard most of these stories. I mean, who hasn't heard the fact that judges give out harsher sentences before lunch versus after lunch, and all of these anecdotes that kind of get thrown around in the social science sphere that feel very 2018, that feel very like, Freakonomics. We've heard these before. Published in 2021, so I was looking for more out of this, I guess, just if there had been any more research. I guess that's a flaw on my own part. The writing is okay, it's crisp, it's the traditional behavioral economics, social science writing that you have come to expect in the field. Overall, just such a huge letdown. Really did not enjoy it. Maybe if you are entering into your behavioral science era, you can pick this one up, but I would much rather you start with Thinking Fast and Slow. I mean, it is kind of the bedrock for the behavioral economics, the decision-making kind of nonfiction world. So go with that. It's a much better book. Next up, another 2 out of 5 Japanese myths. I'm not even sure what this was. Like, this was a random pickup. I was at a secondhand store. I had just sold off a couple of books. And if you have watched these videos, you know I am an enjoyer of Japanese mythology. I'm an enjoyer of Japan and Asia in general. That was one of my focuses when I did my history degree, was Asian history, modern Asian history. So I was like, oh yeah, I don't have a great base of knowledge of Japanese mythology. Let's go for it. I don't know if any of the myths in this book were real. There's no sourcing. There's no really anything. It could have all been made up. It could have all been a flight of fancy. I have no idea. Overall, it was incredibly light on the mythology. I mean, it's not very long at all. It's kind of, you get paragraphs of the dragon and fire, miraculous lights, and it's like, okay, cool. I don't know. Maybe this was made up. I'm still searching for more of a seminal text on Japanese mythology. So if you have one, please let me know, because this is a topic that very much interests me. And this was such a weird thing. I have not come across many books that are just like, that's it. No sources at the end. Could have just been all made up. I don't know. Also, the author, Jake Jackson, the general editor, I don't know, it doesn't sound like a Japanese name to me. Maybe I'm being a little bit biased or stereotypical, but I'm just concerned that maybe I took in 250 pages of fan fiction. So I don't know. I would not recommend it, but we made it through it. Next up, we have Algorithms to Live By. This was an audio book and I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 3 out of 5. My brain does not work in this way at all. This is a computer scientist's kind of perspective, or using some of the tenets of computer science to look at social science. Again, I'm very interested in social science, so you're going to get a lot of these social scientific books and how we make decisions and how we think. This is something coming from more of a harder science perspective, utilizing a lot of different, concepts in computer science that then kind of flesh out and find their way to human decision making. I mean, obviously, humans invented social or computer science, so it would make sense that a lot of these computer science tools and tactics also overlay on decision making in real human life. That is a very interesting way to look at things. Again, this is not how my brain works at all. I am a language, face-to-face person. I'm not a math guy. I was a history major, English. So I like to expose myself to schools of thought and thinking that are completely different than the way that my brain works. But I found that a lot of the ways that the author was kind of breaking down decision making through the lens of computer science was just kind of a natural way that I think about things. So it's always interesting to see like a process-oriented version of the way that your brain kind of just works. It's just a really fascinating book. I would really encourage you to read it. I think that there are some things that probably cannot be construed or cannot be applied to the human experience. Again, with all these behavioral economics and social science books, the data is there, obviously, but there is just this human quality of life that I think a lot of the data maybe doesn't capture. Data is flawed at its core. There's a ton of, response data that may be falsified or lied. It's just hard to get solid data. But I do think that the data in this book is really interesting. I think that some of the tenets of computer science do work. Like something that was really impactful for me was the explore exploit paradigm that they used in the book, and showing how computers, when they are trying to find data, will explore, but they will also exploit the data that they have already found and cached. And I think that that's such a really interesting way to look at life. And there was a parallel with the project that I'm doing right now, reading 100 books this year, not really having any set genres that I'm mining for content. I'm kind of just anything and everything. I'm basically rolling the dice a lot of times. I'm picking books based on their covers. I'm picking random stuff that I would never read. And I'm exploring the world around me, which is something that I want to do as I continue to age. I turned 30. I think a lot about, what the next 30 years of my life are going to be. And I don't want to get into this mode where I just kind of exploit the things that I know that I like. A great parallel is like if you go to the same restaurant all the time over and over again because it's good, that's great, and that's a solid way to live every now and again, but you would have never found the solid restaurant had you not been exploring. So that was something that really stuck with me. I really enjoyed this book. If you're looking for a kind of a shift in perspective, maybe you think more like me, you probably do since you're watching a video about books, you can get more of a computer science perspective on the world. I think it's really worth it. Next up in the changing the way you think about the world, Factfulness, another 3 out of 5. This was a Kindle read. I really enjoyed this book a lot. Again, not really the way that I think about things, but this is a really interesting way to shift your perspective. I know that on the internet and through news networks and just algorithms that we live by, negativity sells, violence, death sell. Thinking that everything is terrible sells really well. So there is a mode in which you can live your life where you assume that everything is terrible and that we are currently living in the worst time ever. And that's the popular and fun thing to do. But if you take a step back and you study where humanity has come from, the last 50 years on this earth have been the most prosperous for humanity ever since we have been on this earth. Now, maybe not the most prosperous for systems of the planet outside of humanity, but that's not for me to talk about in the current moment. This book lays out the facts, the data-driven way to view the world. And it does so very carefully because it is not giving you a Pollyanna way to look at the world. It is always rooted in the fact that there are still individual atrocities, there are still individual hardships going on throughout the world at any given day. It is not writing a treaty to say, just smile more, life is good. It is saying, don't get bogged down by the headlines. Don't get bogged down by the conventional wisdom, because the data itself actually shows in healthcare, in life expectancy, in income, overall, things are getting better. Now, this is probably a trite way to look at the world if you yourself personally are experiencing hardship, and I totally understand that. And what's better, the authors understand that. But it is an interesting way to look at the world, and it has helped me personally when I'm in a rut of despair and oh my God, everything's terrible, to kind of take the 10,000 foot view and say, you know what, overall, humanity is continuing to move forward and we are getting better. It's a small solace, and I really enjoyed reading this book and reading through a lot of the different, data sets that are presented and just understanding that things are getting better. So I enjoyed it. If you're looking for some uplifting without, being overly saccharine, I think that you would really enjoy this one. Next up, we have an audiobook that I liked so much that I bought. It's The Cold War, A New History. John Lewis Gaddis is one of the foremost American historians on the Cold War. This is 1,000 miles wide and an inch deep. As you can see, this is, 270 pages. The Cold War spanned 50 years. So with 270 pages, how much depth are you going to get? But it's not meant for that. It's meant to be an introductory text. It is meant he tells us in the prologue and in the introduction, this is your entry into the scholarship of the Cold War. And in that way, it is pretty fantastic. It does everything that it sets out to do. What I will say about it is a very Western view, obviously. It's an American perspective on the Cold War. America won the Cold War, depending on who you're talking to. So it does have more of a, capitalism defeated the Red Scare and whatever. But it also is very critical of a lot of decision making that American presidents did, American foreign policy. So I think it's balanced in that way. What I will say is, as you are learning more about the Cold War, you should probably take more of a global perspective. So get this one under your belt, and then let me just grab another one for you. And if you get that one done and you are looking for more of the Cold War, we can jump into the global Cold War, which is a little bit thicker. So you really got to enjoy the Cold War, which I guess I'm a sick man because I enjoy reading about it. But this goes into more global perspectives. The first two chapters are on Soviet ideology of foreign intervention and American ideology of foreign intervention. So straight off the bat that this one is going to take more of a perspective. I mean, you can see on the cover there's so I believe this is in Afghanistan, taking over an American military helicopter. So there you go. More of a nuanced perspective. You're going to get both sides of things. You're probably going to get more of a leftist perspective with the global Cold War, maybe more of a rightist perspective with the Cold War. I think it's very important to take in both perspectives to understand this grand scheme and this grand era in history that has overwhelming complications and implications for the time that we're living in currently now. I think a lot of people my age that grew up as the Cold War was over really don't understand how impactful this time was. So I would encourage you guys to read this if you're a fan of history at all. This was a global phenomenon that is still having implications and playing out on a global scale to this day. Finally, in the nonfiction category, the best nonfiction book that I read this month was The Wager. I'm late to this, obviously. This is sweeping the world by storm in the historical circles. I really enjoyed this, 3.5 out of 5. If you want to talk about modern popular history, I don't think you can get much better than Erik Larson, but this is right on the coattails of Erik Larson. David Grann has climbed the list. I mean, it's probably 1A, 1B for me personally with popular history between Larson and Grann. I really loved this. I thought that this was so well sourced, so well written. Popular history needs to have that narrative structure, and this does the narrative better than most things that I have read in the popular history genre. It is like a movie. It is truly like fiction as you're reading it, but it is so well sourced that you are always tied into where did this information come from, firsthand accounts, journals, and there is some, historiography. There is some philosophizing towards the end where we understand the author's perspective on how should we judge this mutiny, this shipwreck. How should we judge that? We understand a little bit of what the author wants to tell us, but it is not laden throughout the entire narrative. So it allows you as the reader to kind of come to your own conclusions and then read the author's conclusion, which I think is just perfectly done popular history. If you haven't read this yet, probably you have. I know I'm late to the party. Give this one a shot. I really loved it. Shipwrecks, kind of pirates, it's just a lot of things that I like, and it is well-written history, which is at the top of my list. So if you haven't read The Wager yet, huge recommendation to read it. Short, sweet, to the point. I listened to it and I loved it, so give it a shot. All right, it's fiction time. A bit of a mixed bag with fiction. We're going to start with a darling that I am just not a fan of, and that is The Handmaid's Tale. I know it's an important book. I understand that, but for something that is so important, it is so poorly packaged. I found myself asking, like, is this it? Is this what everybody is obsessed with? It just feels so poorly written, and I just really didn't enjoy it at all. I gave it a 2 out of 5 because I can understand why other people liked it. It goes out with a whimper. Not to get into spoilers, but I hated the ending. I just was so let down by this that I don't know. I just continued to ask myself, what is the big deal? Why does everybody love this? If you like this, I really would love to understand other people's perspectives on this, because clearly this was not written for me. You know, it's more of a feminist piece of fiction, which maybe is not up my alley, but I would love to hear why you liked it. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say, because obviously I was not the intended audience for this. I just felt that the mixed narrative, the lack of quotations with the dialogue, just some procedural stuff with the writing that just really didn't work for me at all. So more of a surface level take for me, but I don't know. I don't really have much in terms of the social commentary that I feel that I can comment on. So if you would like to take, some of that commentary up down in the comments, I would love to read it, broaden my horizons a little bit, but for me, it just did not work. Oh my God, we're going 2 for 2 with media darlings or popular darlings that I didn't like. Beartown, next up. I know people love this book, and I understand why people love this book, but for me, it's a 2 out of 5. I couldn't get into it. The problem specifically with this one is that when you are writing a book with multi-point perspective, and there are 70% of the perspectives that I just don't care about, we've got a problem. We've got a book that I do not enjoy. And that was the case with Beartown. I think the central narrative of, what a crime means in a sports town is very powerful. But I feel like maybe if I had read this when it first came out, it would have been more impactful for me, because I feel like now in 2025, looking back, this book feels very 2014. I don't know when it came out, but it feels very much like, we had the Duke lacrosse scandal, which ended up being completely falsified. But we had these scandals with athletes, and society at large had to ask, does the fact that they're good athletes preclude them from justice? And I think we went through a couple of these iterations, and we've probably come out the other side saying no. Some people will still, turn their heads, especially in a smaller town. I think if this took place in a Texas football town, we would have the same type of, hand wringing in the town. But the fact that it's hockey, the fact that it's in a foreign country, maybe doesn't resonate the same way with me. Maybe if the setting changed, I would have enjoyed it more. Overall, I think the main thing that made me not love it and take me out of the narrative was just the rapid switching of the perspectives. I don't really love that. I like more of a single point perspective. So those are the reasons why I didn't enjoy it. Incredibly well written. I understand why other people like it, but for me, did not work. Next up, a 3 out of 5, a novella, The Alchemist. This was a Kindle Unlimited, so I just, I go through the Kindle Unlimited and kind of just click the things that I like, because I'm a Kindle Unlimited member, so I get these books for free, quote unquote, or for a monthly fee. This was fine. I am not so much a optimist seeker or enjoyer in my text. This is an allegorical tale about, fate and doing the best you can, and working through different, I don't know. It was fine. It doesn't have much staying power with me. I enjoyed it. I think if you're looking for a little uplifting tale about finding your destiny, go for it. There's some great nuggets of wisdom throughout the whole thing, but I'm looking for more, unfortunately, dark, seedier, more depressing. As you'll see coming up, I've got a couple depressing ones on the higher on the tier list here. So I don't know. It's fine. 3 out of 5, fine. All right, we've got some 3.5 out of 5, maybe even 4s as I ruminate more on them coming up. A bunch of classics. First and foremost, The Grapes of Wrath. I don't know how I missed this one. I really enjoy East of Eden, and I really enjoy Of Mice and Men. Steinbeck is one of the great American writers, obviously, and I had missed this one. So I am so glad that I read it. I listened to it. This book is fine when we're talking about just the narrative, when we're talking about just the Joad family dealing with the Dust Bowl, moving to California. That in itself is good. And then it becomes great when Steinbeck takes the interlude chapters and takes the singular family story of the Dust Bowl and dealing with economic issues in this country and expands it to the entire world, to the entire country. And it just sings. It is so well written in these interlude chapters that I found myself just like rereading those chapters. I can't say enough about it. I think if it was just the narrative, like I said, it would be perfectly fine, good. But I think the classic status comes in the interlude chapters. It's just such incredible writing that I cannot do it justice in a description. You have to go read it. I cannot say enough about it. It is moving to 4 out of 5 status for me. I really loved it. And, you know, the reason that it cannot be really translated to film is the fact that these interlude chapters do so much work to carry the book, the novel. Just go read it. That's all I have to say. Another classic, and one that goes on the Mount Rushmore of very, very, very difficult to read, Lolita. I had read this, I think I had read like the first half of this in college and was just like, I'm too young for that. I can't. This is such a difficult book to read, but I think everybody should read it because it is so well written, and in the hands of an author who is even a little bit less capable, this would be exploitative and impossible to read. But because Nabokov is such a good writer, and because his mastery of language allows us into this messed up human being's mind, it works. I cannot explain why it works, but it works. It is so devastating to read. It is, you question everything about life. You start to look at other people differently. You just, I don't know, coming to this as an older person, you know, I think I was able to, having read all of the stories of, you know, child endangerment, and just, it's just so hard to read, and your skin crawls at every moment because you are inside the mind of a criminal that we as a society have put on the top level of criminals. So to be put in that person's mind and to have to, I guess, go along for the ride and ask yourself, well, is this real? Is this not real? It is unreliable narrator to the peak of its powers. I really think that everybody should read this. Make sure you've got a vomit bag ready. Make sure you've got, you know, close the shades. Make sure nobody knows that you're reading that. I don't know. It's so hard to read. I cannot say this enough. Like, I feel like there needs to be a warning on it. It is so hard to read, but it is so important. And I think it stands the test of time because it is so important, and it gives us a look at some of these members of society that we would rather not look at. And I think good literature thrusts these types of stories in front of you and says, you as a human, look at this, think about this. And I think it's great. Next up, another 3 out of 5. It was Atonement, which I read because I want to watch the movie. I am doing a project where I'm doing film adaptations. I'm going to do a film adaptation tier list. So I wanted to get this one under my belt first as a book and then watch the movie. Still haven't watched it yet. I enjoyed this book a lot. I think I cannot talk about this book because the conceit of the novel is so important and it is such an impactful twist. So I will say that there is a twist, but I will not go any further than that. I think the writing is so incredibly effective. I'm really enjoying historical fiction. Some of the entries in historical fiction that I have read have been very fantastic. So go ahead and read this. I don't want to spoil anything, so I'm just going to cut it off there. I do recommend it. I think it's great. I think it's very well written. Go give it a shot. Blood Over Brighthaven, 3.5 out of 5, quickly creeping up to a 4. There are a few things that I didn't enjoy about this as much as I enjoyed The Sword of Kaigen, but I do think that it will ultimately end up being a 4 out of 5 for me. I mean, ML Wong knows how to write a freaking book. I mean, my goodness. It's just, I'm so, in the realm in which we live in 2025 in the fantasy genre, what's getting published, the fact that basically everything needs to be a series, everything needs to be a saga, and the fact that this author is just like, nah, I've got a story. It's going to be 600, 700, 800 pages, but it is a singular story. It's just a testament to their skill as a writer, and I really enjoyed this one. The reason that I didn't love it as much as Sword of Kaigen, I think, is more setting dependent. I really enjoyed the setting of Sword of Kaigen. I'm not a huge dark academia fan, not a big lover of like complex magic systems, which this book leans on a lot. But this is, I mean, top tier level stuff in the fantasy genre. I did feel like maybe it was a touch more preachy in some of its messaging. The messaging is important, but I did feel like I was getting beat over the head with it just a little bit. But overall, I will read anything and everything that this author writes because I think it is that quality, and I think that you should read it as well. I told you I had some depressing ones coming up. Farewell to Arms, 4 out of 5. Hemingway, if you know me, if you've seen a couple of these videos, you know I love Hemingway. This is such an emotional gut punch, and so just Hemingway at his most Hemingway-ist. The sparse, clipped dialogue, the ability to just, you know, I said a lot of this in my top 3 and bottom 3 video, so if you want more of my thoughts on this, go check this out. But I will just say, if you like Hemingway at all, you have to read this. This is maybe not my favorite of his. The Sun Also Rises still holds that spot, but it is slowly creeping up. It's devastating. I loved it. Go watch the other video if you want more information about it. Finally, my favorite book of the month as we transition to the categories, 4 out of 5, quite possibly 5 out of 5 as I give it more time to kind of steep in my brain, is The Setting Sun, Osamu Dazai. I had known this author because I watched Bungo Stray Dogs, which is an anime where all of the characters are named after Japanese authors. So the main character's name is Dazai, but I had never read any of their work. And my goodness gracious, this hit me like a ton of bricks. This, when I talked earlier about me looking for a little bit of some depressing text, this is what I was thinking about. You want to talk about an allegory for the end of an empire told through a family crumbling. It is so well written and just such a product of its time, post-war Japan, told through the lens of a former aristocratic family that is fallen on hard times, as the rest of the country has, as the family falls into drug addiction, income problems. It's just, I don't know. I loved it. I can't stop thinking about it. You'll see with some of the categories coming up, it hits a lot of the categories. So my book of the month, Setting Sun. I don't want to talk more about it because I want you to experience it as it, fresh and without any other perspectives. Go in and just let it wash over you. It's poetry. It's incredible narrative. I loved it. I really did. Okay, so a few of the categories, like I said, favorite book of the month, Setting Sun. Least favorite book of the month was probably Noise, just the expectations I had going into it, and then it just not living up to itself. Not a great fan. Favorite passage of the month, favorite section of a book that I loved was Grapes of Wrath. I think it's the first or second, interlude chapter of the Dust Bowl. The descriptions in that chapter are so incredible. Just the personification of all of the equipment deteriorating around itself, covered in dust, just everything kind of breaking down is written with such care, and it sets up the rest of the novel as a touchstone to everything is being destroyed by greed, by nature, by just the inability for man to work within a structure and not trample on his fellow man. It sets the book up so well. I think it's probably the first or the second one. It's a passage that you can read outside of the context of the novel and still get a ton out of it. I loved it, and it's one that I will be coming back to. Favorite line, individual line of text, comes from The Setting Sun. I'm going to have to read it. I wrote it down over here. When I think of the future, I feel sick. And when I think of the past, I cry. I mean, if you want to know what this book is about, that line right there. And I think that just speaks to me. I have a big issue with, living in the past or being afraid of the future. And I've decided this year to try and just stay more present in the moment through everything that I do. And when I read this, it felt like he was writing to me specifically. So that's my favorite line of the month. If you have any suggestion for categories, I would love to hear them. I'd love to kind of flesh this out a little bit, maybe make this its own video. I'm not 100% sure. This video is getting very long. So if you have made it to this point, I thank you so much for hanging out with me, hearing me ramble about books. Let me know what you read in April, what you plan to read in May, what has been making you love reading. This channel is all about just sharing the love of books and literature. So I would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for the love on the past couple of videos. If you haven't checked those out, subscribe to do so. I hope you're reading something that you love, that is making you fall back in love with reading. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.